These 10 nights, we'll be talking about spirituality and self-development. And the first speaker we have on this topic is Shaykh Kumail Rajani, who will be giving a 4-part series on the 7 stages of nafs. Dr. Kumail Rajani is a postdoc research fellow in Islamic Studies at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter, working on the law, authority and learning in Shia Islam. He has completed his doctoral thesis entitled Making Sense of Ismaili Traditions, the Modes and Meanings of Transmissions of Hadith in the works of Al-Qadi al-Nu'man. He has spent a number of years in the Hawza of Qum studying and teaching classical Islamic texts of Hadith, fiqh and Islamic legal theory. And we look forward to hearing from him on this topic today. So let's welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Respected sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Qad aflaha man zakkaha. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ash-Shams, Surah number 91, verse number 9 says, "Successful indeed is the one who purifies her or his own soul." In this short series of mini lectures, we are going to examine various stages of nafs, from an-nafsul ammara to its highest stage of an-nafsul maradiya. We will be discussing what is the potential of our ruh, what is the potential of our soul, and how our soul could be elevated to its highest peak of an-nafsul maradiya. This is exactly what we recite in Munajat Sha'bani. In the month of Sha'ban, we all recite this Munajat in which Imam says, Ilahi habli kamalan inqita'i ilayk. And I would like to read out translation of these phrases because it's relevant to our discussion at the very beginning to understand the potential of our nafs, the potential of our ruh. So basically in Munajat Sha'bani, these phrases translate this way. My Lord, grant me complete severance of my relations with everything else and total submission to you. Enlighten the eyes of our hearts with the light of their looking at you to the extent that they penetrate the veils of light and reach the source of grandeur, ma'adin al-adama, and let our souls get suspended by the glory of your sanctity. The phrases which I just read from Al-Munajat al-Sha'baniya exemplifies what is the potential of our nafs, how our souls, our nafs, our ruh could be elevated to its highest peak of Kamalul Inkita, which is the stage of An-Nafsul Maradiya. How beautifully this concept is well encapsulated in Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi's Masnavi, in which he says, Murghe baghe malakutam naya az alame khak, chandrozi qafasi sakhtand dar badanam. This is Persian quote from Maulana Rumi's Masnavi. But let me read out the translation to understand how Maulana Rumi is trying to explain this concept of the potential of our soul and how our soul could reach to the supreme abode of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by seeking proximity to his essence. So Maulana Rumi says, I am a heavenly bird from the garden of paradise. I am not from this dusty earth. My body is being trapped inside this worldly cage for just a few days. The happiest day of my life is when I fly away towards my friend, flapping my wings faster to reach his heavenly abode. The discussion and the topic of nafs is so vital and is so crucial that is mentioned in various hadith in which Imam says, Man arafa nafsa faqad arafa rabba. The prerequisite of ma'rifatul Rabb, the prerequisite to our knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ma'rifat of our own nafs, the ma'rifat of our own soul. Without understanding the potential of our soul, we won't be able to fully exploit and understand ma'rifatul Rabb. So let's begin our journey of self-purification and understanding of ma'rifatul nafs by making distinction of what is ruh, what is nafs. Occasionally we use these words interchangeably, and I would like to avoid all the jargons and all the technical discussions and sophisticated arguments concerning the differences between nafs and ruh. In simple terms, what I would like to propose a working definition for this series of mini lectures. Nafs is basic the functionality of our ruh. We all possess a body which we all are familiar with. Along our body, we have something which we call it ruh. This ruh has different functions, different roles. In various stages, it could be elevated at different roles and different functions. So those functions and those stages of our ruh, we could name it nafs. So when we say a person's is at the stage of a nafsul ammara, what we're trying to say is a person is invested so much in worldly affairs that we would be able to classify her or his ruh as at the stage of a nafsul ammara. When we'll be discussing the second stage, which is a nafsul lawama, what we mean is that my ruh is at the stage where I am blaming myself, when I am feeling remorse. I'm blaming my own soul for various acts which I'm indulging in. So I would be able to classify my ruh as a nafsul lawama, and so on and so forth. So in this series, after having made this distinction between ruh and nafs, let's name the 7 stages of nafs. And in each lecture, we will be able to cover 1 or 2 nafs based on our time in that particular session. So the 7 stages of nafs goes this way. The first nafs is a nafsul ammara, but then the ruh could be elevated to the second stage, where we would be able to call that ruh is at the stage of a nafsul lawama. Then there is a third stage of our ruh, when our ruh could be classified at the stage of a nafsul mutafakkira, and the fourth stage would be a nafsul aqila. The fifth would be a nafsul mutma'inna. The sixth is a nafsul radiya, and the seventh would be the stage of a nafsul mardiya. We'll be able to explore all these various stages of ruh, which we call it nafs, and then we would be dissecting each other in detail, explaining the major characteristics of these nafs, and this anfus, as the plural word goes for the nafs. So let's begin our discussion with the first nafs, which is a nafsul ammara. Interestingly, we have a verse in Quran in Surah Yusuf, which is Surah number 12, verse number 53, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ, as if Prophet Yusuf is mentioning, إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ, that there is a nafs which constantly inciting towards evil, towards bad things, towards things which gets people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what we call a nafsul ammara. If we want to translate in a simple word, we might call a nafsul ammara as the inciting nafs, the nafs which is constantly inciting us. We should be careful in translating, and Quran is not using the word al-amma in the nafs ammaratun bis. So it's not amiratun. It's not like one of those indulgence, or one of those invitation towards evil thing. Rather, it is ammara, which would be translated as constantly inciting, constantly inviting towards evil. So in the nafs la ammaratun bisu. So in this series of tazkiyatun nafs, in this series of self-evaluating nafs, let's start and evaluate ourselves, whether my own soul, my own ruh, whether is it at the stage of nafsul ammara or not. I have worked on my soul, I have worked on my ruh, and I have made it elevated to the next level, maybe second, maybe third, or so on and so forth. So for that reason, we should be discussing the major features and characteristics of a nafsul ammara, so we would be able to appraise ourselves, we would be able to critically analysis our ruh, to examine at which stage we are. So there are three major characteristics and features of a nafsul ammara. A person who is at the stage of nafsul ammara, the first characteristic is that person would be at the stage of animalistic, he or she would be possessing animalistic attitudes towards everything what he or she might be doing in this world. How beautifully Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in Surah Al-Furqan, verse number 44, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Am tahsabu anna aktharahum yasma'una wa ya'qilun. O Prophet, do you really think that these people in this world, most of them, are they thinking, are they listening and making good use of their intellect? Inhum illa kala an'am balhum adallu sabila. Majority of them are nothing but as good as livestock, and maybe they may be more astray than animals. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Furqan. So the person who is at the stage of nafsul ammara, their characteristics and features would be as good as animals, or I should say as worse as animals, because for human beings we possess intellect, we have the power of reasoning. Poor animals, they don't have this intellect, they don't have this power of a rational thinking as we possess. And if a person has made his or her own soul to the lowest level, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that they are poorer and the worse than animals, then we will have to reflect. So the person who is at the stage of a nafsul ammara, they will have an animalistic attitude towards everything, to which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions they won't listen, they won't reason, they won't pay attention to any godly things in this world. So that's the first characteristics. I need to ponder, I need to reflect whether I'm at this stage or not. The second characteristic, the second feature of a person who is at the stage of a nafsul ammara is that she or he might be enjoying the company of bad things and would not be enjoying the company of godly things and godly values. That's what we call the person is at the stage of a nafsul ammara. Let me elaborate on this particular feature by taking recourse to one of the beautiful examples when Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi in his Masnavi mentions. He gives the story of a young individual who was a skin tanner. His job was, since his early childhood, he was busy with his parents in tanning the skins of various animals. He was acquainted with the smell, the bad smell which that skin had, various skins, various animals, and he got completely acquainted with the smell. Once upon a time, what happens? He goes to the market, a bazaar of perfumes, where he got for the first time an opportunity to explore, to smell the fragrance of a beautiful scent, an interesting scent. When he took the perfume, he was about to smell that fragrance. What happens? He felt unconscious. People were perplexed. They were amazed. What happened to this young individual? This bazaar, this market is full of perfumes. It's so freshening that people are happy after smelling this beautiful scent. And what happened to this young individual? That he has a complete opposite attitude. He's not enjoying this perfume. Rather, this perfume made him unconscious. People started to make effort to revive him. Some of them started giving him massage. The others said, I have rose water. He started sprinkling the rose water on his face with the hope that this young individual is going to revive from his unconsciousness. But what happened? People saw that when the rose water was sprinkled on his face, he was made to feel more unconscious. He had a little bit, movement in his limbs while he was unconscious. I mean, semi-unconscious. Now he went into complete unconsciousness. Then comes his brother. He comes and he says, like, what happened? And then people narrated the story. So his brother says, I have a formula to revive him from his unconscious. He goes out of the bazaar, out of the market. He takes the feces of a dog. He brings it and make a smell to this young individual, to his brother. And this brother, surprisingly, he comes to consciousness. Everyone is bamboozled. Like, we have beautiful fragrance. We have, like, the world-class perfumes. It's so freshening that people comes to consciousness, and this is like completely opposite. This individual has is a nature which is completely alien to what we used to think. And this brother starts explaining. He says, look, our job since our young age was to tan the skins of the animals. That's our profession. We are acquainted to the odor, to the smell of all the animals, on all the bad smells which you call it. We are acquainted with those smells. We're not familiar with what perfumes and this fragrance which what you would call. After this story, Maulana Rumi is trying to give us a lesson. He says, sometimes in this world, our ruh, our nafs is at the stage of nafs ammara. We are so much indulgent, we are so much engrossed, invested in worldly matters, and we are so much consumed in these worldly matters that becomes our primary nature. To the extent that if we are invited in the company of godly people, in the company of godly values, we would be unconscious, we would feel frustrations, we would be felt alienated, we won't be able to resonate with those godly values. This is what Maulana Rumi says. And I would like to just draw your attention towards the second feature of An-Nafsul Ammara. That a person at the stage of An-Nafsul Ammara, our ruh would be at the stage that we would be like that boy, that young individual who would be very much acquainted with those bad smells. But when it comes to perfumes, when it comes to godly values, we would feel alien to those values. We won't enjoy that company. We won't enjoy those munajat, those seeking proximity, those beautiful acts which needs our attention, and we would like to be away from that. That's the second feature and second characteristic. So if I want to examine myself, that whether my ruh is at the stage of nafs al-ammara, this would be a good yardstick to see what are my primary nature, what are my inclinations. Do I enjoy the company of good people? Do I enjoy investing my time in godly things, or I am more consumed towards worldly matters and the things which makes me away from God? That's the second characteristic. The third feature of a person who is at the stage of nafs al-ammara is that particular individual would not be in need of a shaitan, of a devil, of a Satan to astray him, to make him away from God. Mostly we get this question in the month of Ramadan, that the shaitan is chained. The shaitan is chained in the month of Ramadan. So what happens? Like, why some of us would like to commit sin in the month of Ramadan? The simple argument is that Allah has chained the outer shaitan, the outer Satan and devil. He has not taken the responsibility to cage and to chain our nafs, which has turned into a mini shaitan, who is turned into a nafsul ammara. Because remember, the person who is at the stage of a nafsul ammara, they might not be in need of an outer shaitan to misguide them, because their nature is animalistic. They enjoy bad things. They enjoy those things which are alien to godly values. So the third feature is that the third characteristic is the person at the stage of a nafsul ammara, they might not be in need of an outer shaitan, an outer devil, or outer Satan to misguide a nafsul ammara. We shouldn't be taking lightly. Towards the end, I would like to give another example from Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi in his Masnavi. He quotes this beautiful example. He says, like, when it comes to a nafsul ammara or in nafs in general, we can't take it lightly. We can't think that we have been able to capture and to control and to conquer fully our nafs. As Surah Yusuf says, in the nafs la ammaratum bisu, it's constantly inciting us towards evil, right? So that constant feature is always there in nafs al ammara. So if I am under the illusion that I am protected, then I would have to think it twice. Because Maulana Rumi says that this person who wanted to show off that he is so brave, the man from Iraq, he visits on the snowy and the cold mountains of Iran in Persia. In Persia, when he saw in the cold mountains, he was exposed to a giant serpent, a snake, like a cobra. The snake was frozen because it was snow, full of snow. He takes this frozen snake, assuming that the snake is dead, the cobra is dead. He would like to take this and bring it to Baghdad to show people how brave he is, that he has captured a serpent, he has captured a giant snake, a cobra, and to demonstrate and to display his bravery. When he came to the bridge of Baghdad to display his bravery, to display the people that he had caught a serpent, what happened? The warmth of the rays of the sunlight made this serpent melt all its snow, and the snake came into movement. The snake opened its mouth. The first individual to whom it caught was this very person who had captured the snake. He was assuming that he has conquered it. He has total control over that serpent, but he was wrong. He had a wrong illusion. So Maulana Rumi says that if someone thinks that he was able to control an-nafsul ammara in his full action, and he had a full control over an-nafsul ammara, he should be thinking twice. Because when this an-nafsul ammara is exposed to evil things, the first person who would be victim is the very person who is the possessor of an-nafsul ammara. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.